Hi, I'm Annie Von Essen with Vessel Strategy and Consulting, and I am coming back for part two of video series tips for staying open and non-defensive in difficult conversations. So if you haven't caught it, there is a part one that talks about why bother trying to be non-offensive when conversations get hard, or at least stay open, and so what the benefits are, and also why do we even get defensive, and what to do when you're not in a conversation to gain more and more skills for being able to stay in it when it gets really sticky and hard in a conversation or just complicated. So this part two is, all right, you're in it. Either you're in a conversation with a team or someone that you work with, or you're in a conversation with a family member. And this can work in either a moment when you just find yourself in the conversation. Let's say it's late and you're both exhausted, and you're in a house with another family member, and just something comes up and it just kind of starts to wind up. Maybe it was about the dishes and now it's about roles and responsibilities and who's doing what. I don't know. Maybe that's possibly a conversation that could come up in family right now. Or this could be something you really use to prepare for a conversation that you're going into with a team member, or with somebody that you work with. And I would say I'm going to give 7 steps or tips. And some of these things you may be really like, of course, yes, I do this already naturally. This is something I pay attention to. Maybe you do all of these. And for some folks, this may be like, whoa, this is a lot of things it wants to try and pay attention to when your emotions are high in a conversation. And I totally agree. And I would say in that, just pick one of these that feels like something you could try to work on or pay attention to. Just pick one that you feel like would be the most helpful for you. So here we go. The first one is just to be aware and address first your body's stress response. So when a conversation is maybe starting to feel a little hot, maybe something is being brought up that is feedback for you directly, or is a direct contradiction to something you really care about or believe, or want to have change in the world, usually you can feel a couple of things happen in your body. And one of them is your stress response. Your body is like, I'm not feeling okay. I feel like maybe we're under attack, and your heart starts to race. Possibly you maybe start to feel sweaty. Maybe things in your body tense up. It's your body giving you adrenaline and giving you some support to respond. So just pay attention to that. You can actually use that if you acknowledge it. See if you can find what's happening in your body. And if you are in a situation where you're actually safe and okay, take some breaths, settle back into your stomach if you can. And if you can't, even say something to yourself like, I'm okay. Whew, this is feeling hot, a little hard, but I'm okay. The breaths and the actual statement are helping your parasympathetic nervous system come back online and say, oh, it's not quite as bad as we thought. We're okay. We got this together. We can calm it down. We don't have to be on full tilt, right? It may be, though, that you check in and you're like, oh, I'm actually not okay. This conversation isn't safe. It doesn't feel good to me at all emotionally with what someone is saying, or where I'm at, or what I'm going to take in, or the information I'm willing to take in, or I don't physically feel okay in this conversation. So that's like a really good moment to notice that difference. And if that's the case, see how you can get out of the conversation, to take care of yourself. Take a breath and figure out how to leave the conversation, set a boundary, set a time when you can come back to it if it's something you have to come back to. Are there other people you can bring in the next time? So I'm thinking of a lot of different scenarios, but one of these may be a supervisor situation, or someone on your team that is harmful and maybe not even aware that they are. So not saying to stay in it if it's not good for you. don't. If you can, set boundaries around that, get support, get somebody else in there with you if you have to have the conversation. So let's say for the rest of this, it's just a conversation that's making you feel conflicted or upset, or it's a really big difference of opinion or viewpoint, but you're safe. You're emotionally and physically safe. So you've done some breathing, and now you're going to keep tapping into the breath the whole rest of the time, the best that you can. The second reaction you're going to notice is if you actually also have a defense response, like oh no, you're not going to say that about me or my team or this project or my house or what I did with this or that, right? Maybe your defense doesn't look like that. That's what it sounds like in my head. And I know now what my body does when I get defensive. I get hot. I go angry. So some people don't go there, but that's where my body goes. My shoulders get up. Okay, we'll hold that position long because we're supposed to be in a non-defensive state. So just start to feel so then you can notice when your body's doing it. And you're like, oh, I'm feeling defensive. Something's up for me, right? The minute you notice it, your body will say, okay, good, I'm glad you're paying attention to me. And then you don't actually have to stay there if you keep breathing. Then do anything you can, this is number 3, to really slow down and acknowledge what's going on. Like, what conversation are you finding yourself in? What is somebody offering to you? So see if you can slow down and say, oh, I'm hearing you. You're saying this, or, oh, I need a minute to catch up. Like, we're entering into this conversation. I didn't know we were entering into this. Okay, give me just a minute. Okay. All right, I want to listen. I want to understand more, right? So slow down the conversation for yourself a bit, possibly for the other folks, and just acknowledge that you're in it together. The number 4 is a really powerful one that you can actually practice doing in the moment, either out loud or in your head, which is to find and remember what your purpose or your goal is in the conversation, your reason why you would even be in the conversation, and what might be the main reason someone else is in this conversation with you. So you can even check in about that. Like, what do you hope to get from us talking about this today? Like, where do you hope to land? It would help open a goal for them. But you can also usually listen for it. And look for, is there actually a common goal, even if it feels like you're talking about very different things. Maybe you are both wanting to make sure your family is safe and cared for, or that you have less stress in a family conversation or visit, or that you complete a team project, right? So look for what the goal might be in the conversation, and then notice if it's not the same. It's good to notice too, we actually have different goals. And then you have the opportunity to keep in mind your goal in the conversation, but also really keep in mind the other person's main reason for even entering the conversation. All right, number 5 is, this is the one that's in like all the communication things, right? Ask curious questions so that you can learn more. Y'all, I'm not very good at this one. Like, when I said pick the one that you could like hold on to at least in a conversation, this is still mine. So what is the open, curious conversation that allows the other person to go further into what they're talking about before you just like jump into the fast, like, shut it down. I don't want to feel this way anymore, or you're not getting it, and I have this really important thing that you need to understand, which is the defensive state, right? If the conversation gets open enough, there'll be room. There'll be room. And you'll enter it differently if you have a better idea of what they're bringing up. And it doesn't have to be the last conversation. If this is a person you care about, or a team member, or a project you care about, or an issue you care about, and you are invested in having this kind of a conversation with this person about this, it doesn't have to be the last time. So slow down and ask the curious conversations. Can you tell me more about that? When you said, what did you mean by that? So just, how can you open it up gently? And man, I'm telling myself this too. All right, number 6. There's 2 more steps, 6 and 7, all right? So number 6 is when you're hearing the thing that somebody is offering for you, like, it makes it really difficult for me when you're slow to wake up in the morning and I have to deal with everything on my own, right? Somebody I love may have this feedback from me. So your first kind of a defensive response, especially with feedback or some different viewpoint than yours, is like a no. See if even if the conversation is coming to an end or in the middle of the conversation, can you find a posture that's not no? Can you try it on for size? So that's number 6. Try it on for size. What happens if you let what they're saying be true? And you can always come back to it, right? But just see if there's some part of this you can try and for size. And P.S., if it's their actual lived experience that they're living out, that they're sharing with you, then it is true. So you're just looking at, how do I understand that's not my experience, and how do I understand the truth in that, what that could be like, okay? And then number 7, another classic, is just checking in for understanding. Again, this is when we talk about all the time in like communication, I don't know, 101 kind of conversations and listening. And it's actually really hard to do. And man, it feels so good when you're on the receiving end of it. State back what you heard. Slow down and say, I heard you say, when you wake up in the morning earlier, you feel really alone in that start of the day and you don't feel supported. Is that what you were saying? Right? So there's the state it back, and then ask, is that what you mean? And then listen to see what you got right and what you didn't get wrong. We're filtering everything through, so we're not going to hear it all, right? And that's okay. And I promise you, people don't get upset about you slowing down and saying, is this what I heard? If you really listen to see if it's what they were saying, they're grateful for the chance to correct it, right? And then you can also use that space for checking for understanding to clarify if there's something that's being asked of you, even if you're not saying yes to it yet. So you can use it to say, are you asking this? It seems like you're wanting or needing more of this, and that's something I need to think about, or that's something I can do, right? And if you're also learning something new, it's great to signify like, hey, that's totally new learning for me. I'm just taking this in. I'm just receiving like this really new understanding, right? Okay, so that's it. Hopefully you kept breathing through the whole conversation and you were practicing these things. So the deal is the work is never over after the conversation ends, right? So to stay open and non-defensive and keep building these relationships, you have to continue the conversation, and you have to continue on your own work after the conversation. So I just have 3 more things to offer for after or in between. Let's say this is an ongoing conversation with a team member, a family member, right? Afterwards, go get outside perspective and process with somebody outside of that human being. And what this looks like is just a space where you can talk through what you heard, what you are feeling defensive about or angry about, or sad about or excited about. And pick somebody or more than one person who is not going to be harmed by having to relive the story. So if it's somebody that experiences this or is on a team and is dealing with like the same situation and you're coming in and talking about it with them, it might be really harmful or exhausting. If you're learning something new about your own identity, like around race, and you're a white person and you go speak to a person of color that you're not in like deep relationship with, that hasn't given you the okay to come in and process, then it's just like possibly exhausting, right? So avoid that. Find somebody that's not going to be harmed, who really cares about you, process it with them, and pick somebody that's not going to let you off the hook. So that's also really important. They know you and they care about you, but they're also going to say yep if they need to. The second thing is to search for what is your learning, what is the story that you built, what is the impact that you had. So look for your place and your learning in what was shared. Just a reflective process. And then the third is to actually take next steps. So often I hear about really big or difficult conversations that come up, especially in professional settings, where possibly a supervisor has heard things and they've done a great job listening and they feel like they did a really great job with the conversation, but then they didn't follow up. And that if there are asks, if there is actionable change, if there's problems to solve together, if there's things to bring back to a team, you've got to take next steps. And next steps can look like making an actual change that's yours to make, going back and saying, let's solve this together, let's work on this as a group or a team, apologizing. You may have something come up in the conversation, you may not have realized it, and there may be an apology that needs to happen afterwards. Acknowledging any responsibility you had, any learning you've had, and what support you still need or what ongoing learning you still need based on something that was brought up. Maybe there's a brand new perspective in there and you're going to go on your own and learn more about that. So take the next steps and stay in the conversation. And I believe, as humans, at this moment in time, when so much is happening, this is one of the most powerful skills we can just keep coming back to and practicing, is how do we stay open and non-defensive in the conversation so that we can support people that we love, so that we can learn, so that we can grow, so that we can push folks forward in seeing and hearing the things that are huge and needing to change in our world. So thank you so much for taking the time. Let me know how it's going. I'm always available to support and answer questions. Thank you.